I am ranking adult animation shows. Now, adult animation is a genre that I think is very underutilized in today's day and age. I think it's probably one of the funniest genres. It's certainly one of the ones I find most comforting. Most of my comfort viewing is in this realm. So today we are going to talk about the good, the bad, the rest, and pretty much all of the shows that are out there still to this very day. Now, a lot of these shows, their issue is that they go on too long, and we're going to see that quite a bit coming up. But what we're going to do is we're going to go show by show that they have displayed in this current list and pop them in our ranking system here. We start with American Dad. Now, American Dad is actually probably one of my favorites. I really enjoy it. I think that the character dynamics are very strong. I feel like it's one of the ones that has fallen off a cliff a little bit lately in terms of how good it is. But I can't deny that I still do love this show. This is one of the shows that I regularly return to. I will put it at a very solid A. I really think that it's got a lot of humor to it. It's a lot of fun. It's very humorous. And if you've never got a chance to watch it, which I doubt, it's the Seth MacFarlane show. Most people probably have seen those at this point. Yeah, give it a go. It's still got some gems in there. It probably has some of my favorite episodes of all time in the world of adult animation outside of Clone High. The one show that this list doesn't have is Clone High, and I wish that they did. But moving on, we have Big Mouth. Now, Big Mouth is a show. They also don't have human resources, but I feel like that would track about the same level as Big Mouth. Big Mouth for me is a miss. I watched a few. I'm gonna give it another shot one day. I remember just watching the first few episodes and being like, this isn't doing it for me. I don't like this. I don't like the characters. I don't like how they're all interacting. I don't think it's funny. Big Mouth for me just left a really big... It was a big miss for me. I don't feel like there was as much impact. I liked the idea of it, and hopefully... I hear that it gets better as it goes on, but I'm just like, it's still a lot of time to invest in something I'm not digging right away. So, to be fair, I will give this another shot sometime, probably sometime soon. Maybe my feelings on it will change. Maybe I'll do a listing of it. We'll find out. But for right now, I have to say that Big Mouth is one of the ones that just for me never quite hit the mark. Now, what did hit the mark, I think, for a lot of people is BoJack Horseman. This show is excellent. I remember watching the first season and talking about it with one of my friends at Snakes and Lattes, and I remember being like, okay, it takes about halfway through the series, and then you realize this isn't a sitcom. This is a drama disguised as a comedy. And once you realize that, BoJack Horseman probably becomes one of the most intelligent shows out there. I think it's probably one of the best shows that's been released in the past 10 years. Will Arnett is excellent as BoJack. It's excellent casting throughout. You feel for these characters, and they're anthropomorphic animals, and obviously not all of them. But like everyone's so visceral and real, and you really get a connection to them. And it's one of the few shows that tackles not only like the dark side, but tackles the dark side in like a palpable, nasty way. Like you feel bad for these characters. You feel it crushes you. And there's definitely a lot there that they explore. They explore really dark subject matter. So if your trigger warnings are things like depression, suicide, like alcoholism, especially, like it is something to go into with that knowledge, because it sneaks up on you, and then suddenly you realize halfway through, just like, oh, I'm watching one of the most poignant things I've ever seen in my life. So, there we go. The Boondocks. The Boondocks is okay. I will definitely put it above Big Mouth, but for me, it never fully hit the mark either. Maybe I just wasn't the right target market for it. Maybe it's just that I watched it too early and couldn't fully appreciate it. But it's been a few years since I've watched it. Maybe it's gotten better since then. I don't have the highest hopes for that. But I will say, for what it was funny. It had some really good moments. It had some really good lines. The cast itself is probably the starring piece of this. They were the ones that were really, really good, and they made me appreciate the show a lot more. But overall, it's definitely not one of the ones that I seek out to this day. Now let's talk Brickleberry. Wow, possibly one of the worst shows that I've seen. It was bad. And like it's not just bad, but it's real bad. It's painfully unfunny. I remember watching this and thinking, I don't know what they're going for, but whatever it is, they are missing the mark. There is nothing about this that I'm enjoying. There is nothing about this that I find humorous. It's like the most... How was this made? How did this go on for 3 seasons? Like, is watching so base level stupid that this was what was created? I don't know. I find that it wasn't intelligent. The jokes weren't funny. The characters weren't likable. And on that regard, I think I have to just automatically throw Paradise PD in there, because I couldn't tell you which one is worse, because they're both awful. They are just awful. It's bad. If you watch this, if you can find enjoyment in this, that's great. I could not. I cannot. I don't like. It's no good. It is no good. So, that's my opinion. I hold to it. You can fight me on it later. The Cleveland Show. This was a miss. Not quite as abysmal as, like, the Brickleberry Bunch, but it wasn't great. I don't think anyone is out there is still, like, a diehard Cleveland Show fan. My biggest issue with this is that they had a really great bunch of characters in Cleveland's family. And then since folding back into Family Guy, they really haven't utilized them that much, other than every now and then someone will make a quip. But they really could use these characters more to add more dynamics into Family Guy itself. But for what it is, Cleveland Show, not very good. Close Enough. Close Enough is a little bit of a gem. I think it's hilarious. I love this show. I think they do a really good job of, like, oh, this is what it feels like to be in your 30s in the modern day. And it's zany and it's wild and it's crazy and it's just funny. There's something about it that's just hilariously funny. And I would definitely recommend this show to anyone who wants something a little more on the zany side, a little more on the silly side. It's definitely one that I think that a lot of people will enjoy. Disenchanted. I have a love-hate relationship with Disenchanted. I feel like Matt Groening's other shows I will regularly think of and regularly, like, think on and evaluate and do different things. Disenchanted constantly falls out of my head. I have to constantly remind myself that it even exists. So overall, I like the character Bean. My big issue with it is that they were really harping on the fact that this is now a serialized show. But I don't think Matt Groening knows how to make a serialized show, because every episode falls back into, like, a trope at the end 80% of the time. And then you're just kind of starting from the same thing again and again. And it doesn't really get funnier. It just kind of becomes different. And it's more things that happen. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll come back to that in a second. All right, next up we have probably one of the more popular options, Family Guy. Family Guy has been around for a long time. It has been good for a time, and then it became not great. So, where does it sit today? I would say that Family Guy is probably still a B. Maybe above Big Mouth and the others, but that's just my personal preference. I think that Family Guy could arguably be much lower based off of some of the... Actually, you know what? B is being too generous. I would say C. It has fallen off quite a bit. It used to be really great, and now I would say it's okay. It's something I still watch, not because I want to, but because I feel like I have to. Futurama is probably one of my all-time favorite shows ever, so to put it anywhere other than the top of the S tier would be, I think, a crime. I think it's second in terms of adult animation to me, only to Clone High. But Futurama, if you ever get the chance to watch it back to front, there is no wrong way there. Inside Job surprised me. It was actually kind of a cute, clever little take on a science fiction series. Is it great? No. Is B being generous? Maybe. Maybe like a high C. But I remember I binged it all in about a day. In like a few days. And it was good. It was pretty good. So, what do you do there? Rick and Morty obviously is fun. It is mostly... Okay. Rick and Morty is an easy B. Is it an A? I don't think so. Because I feel like the fan base attached to Rick and Morty has tainted it a little bit and changed the show for the worse. Is it still great? Yeah. Is it still fun? Yes. Is it a show that I'm going to actively seek out and watch all the time? Not necessarily. So I kind of feel like it's in that realm. I feel the same way. Actually, I feel the same way about Rick and Morty than I do about Tuca and Birdie. Tuca and Birdie is pretty good. Like, it's pretty good. I've enjoyed it. It's silly. It's lighthearted. It's fun, but still dramatic. It's definitely related to the BoJack Horseman mentality in that sense, and the fact that they expanded that world I really enjoy. So, overall, I would say that's pretty good. A B for those shows, I think, is fair. Solar Opposites is surprisingly great. I feel like the Wall story in itself is probably one of the best things that's come out of, shows in a long, long time. If you haven't got a chance to watch it, stick with it for the first season, because it does get a lot better the more it goes on. Once it's got time to breathe and it kind of stepped away from the Rick and Morty shadow, it really got time to play. And it is hyper violent. It doesn't hold back. And overall, I would say it's probably one of my favorites right now. Definitely one of the ones I was looking most forward to when it came out. And then finally, The Simpsons. Now, The Simpsons is a dichotomy of my mind, because do you go on the early episodes, which are like easy S tier? Do you go with the middle episodes, which are like easy F tier? Do we go with the middle, which is like the newer seasons, which are kind of in the middle? And I kind of have to just go with a low B. Like, they're not great. It's not bad. It's not something that I would consider, revolutionary. But overall, I would say that there's enough there to keep it engaging and keep it interesting. And, it does have the best cast of characters of any TV show ever. And the fact that it's not just the Five family, but like everyone in Springfield is all there. The one show that isn't here that surprises me is Bob's Burger. That's an easy A show. I would put it right ahead of American Dad. So that would be the one show that I think that they've missed out on. There's also Farzar, which I've watched recently, which would be at the bottom of F tier. I would say Final Space is another show that could be here, which I would put in the low A tier, just on top of Solar Opposites. So those are the ones that I think are missing. What do you think is missing? I want to know. So tell me what you're thinking, and I will see you next time here on Ranked.